Good day, and welcome to the Plant Engineering webcast, Do Your Best with Less, Efficiency Tools for Maintenance Leaders, sponsored by Dude Solutions. I'm the moderator, Kevin Parker, and I'm happy to join you today on behalf of Plant Engineering. Here are some tips to help you get the most from today's webcast. If you experience issues with the slides or audio, refresh your browser or click the Refresh Media button directly under the presenter's picture. Control the webcast volume using your computer or by adjusting the volume on the platform. For technical problems with the audio or slide presentation, click on the question mark at the top right-hand corner of the screen to access a list of system checks to try before contacting an online technician. If you do need a technician, type a message in the Ask a Question box, and someone will get to you as quickly as possible. You can also type questions for our speaker in the Ask a Question box. The live Q&A session will begin after the presentation concludes. Today's webcast is being recorded. You will receive an email within a week with the link to the on-demand event. To download a certificate of completion, a PDF copy of the presentation, and other resources, use the Event Resources tab on the left-hand side of the screen. Those documents will also be available with the on-demand version. Learn more about enterprise asset management and register for the Dude Solutions virtual booth visit located in the tab at the top of the screen. I'd now like to introduce today's speaker, Paul LaChance. Paul LaChance has devoted his career to optimizing maintenance teams by enabling actionable insights and data-driven decisions. He wrote his first Cmms system in 2004 and has ever since been involved in designing and directing CMMS and EAM systems. A regular speaker at national trade shows, he's been featured at IMTS, FabTech, and SMRP, as well as in industry trade publications. He currently serves as the Senior Manufacturing Advisor for Dude Solutions. Thanks for joining us today, Paul. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and it's really great to be presenting to you all today. We'll be talking about efficiencies in maintenance and operations. Today's agenda, well, we'll start by talking about the data and why efficiency matters. I'm going to use a parody of a sort of Discovery Channel documentary type disaster event. And we'll go through that actually twice, the first time with a disaster and the second time with that disaster avoided. And of course, we'll end the presentation today with how you can get started with lean and efficient maintenance operations. So just a little bit about Dude Solutions. We've been around for about 20 years. We are wholly focused on maintenance and operations and peripheral areas around that. You can see by some of those numbers on the screen there, we have a lot of experience in a wide variety of industries around maintenance and operations, CMMS, EAM, and similar. Lots of assets, lots of users, lots of work orders. And through all that experience, we've got a great pulse on how we can complement the maintenance professionals in this world, make their jobs easier, be more lean and efficient. We'll be featuring our Asset Essentials CMMS, Computerized Maintenance Management System, today. It's a full-fledged CMMS EAM solution with asset management, preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, work orders, parts, reporting and analytics, mobility, and so forth. So you can learn more about Dude Solutions and our products. There'll be information at the end here, but we'll be focusing using that as examples today. So let's first start with the data and why efficiency matters. Lean and efficiency really does matter. It helps control costs. It helps drive profitability. I'm not going to talk about every one of these stats on here, but if you look on that left-hand side, organizations that have a solidly implemented CMMS will experience the first one there, 35 to 50% improvement in reliability of your equipment. Reliability is essential in today's operations. Everybody wants reliability, production, engineering, IT, maintenance. So you can really improve that reliability with a well-implemented CMMS. Productivity, 28% and change. That's your team. That's what you can get done in the course of a day. And to improve that by 28% is amazing. 20% reduction in downtime. Downtime is one of the biggest profit killers in the manufacturing universe. And we want to avoid downtime and promote our uptime wherever possible. So as you go through these stats, whether it's improving parts or preventive maintenance can extend the life of your asset by as much as 35%. That will make dramatic reductions in your capital expenses as well. So the numbers really make sense. Lean and efficiency disciplines, especially supported by a CMMS solution, really matter. So what does it mean to be, quote unquote, lean and efficient? Sometimes I get accused of just using the word lean like everybody knows what it means. And operating lean is, in my mind, is, quote unquote, doing more with less. And it's not about taking shortcuts. It's not about just cutting people and getting by with less. It's effectively, intelligently doing your best work, potentially with less overall resources. And that is possible if you have a lean and efficient mindset, lean and efficient disciplines, especially if you're supported with solutions like CMMS, EAM, and others that can promote a lean and efficient environment. It is a continuous improvement process. It doesn't happen overnight. You chip away with lean and efficiency to make those improvements and see those statistics like we saw on the previous slide. It helps you control and avoid waste. And probably most importantly for our for-profit viewers, controlling those costs and ultimately driving better profitability. In different aspects of your operations, it impacts you different ways. For your labor, your team, it's all about having that right person for the right job at the right time. A preventive maintenance culture, getting away from that firefighting mode that so often manufacturers are saddled with. The ability to have access to your CMMS anywhere you're at, whether you're working from home, whether you're looking at your mobile device while you're in between buildings on your campus, or if you're eventually someday you're away on vacation or at a show or a conference somewhere, when we get back to that, being able to look at your CMMS and see how your operations are from wherever you are and still be able to keep tabs on your team. For your assets and your facilities, it's all about better production, reducing that scrap and rework, promoting uptime, which will extend to preserving the life of the assets and more efficient running assets, and slowing or reducing energy consumption as well as different forms of waste. From a parts and procurement standpoint, it's all about having that optimal quantity on hand, which is not an easy thing to do when you're operating in a pandemic with the disruptions to the supply chain, but really trying to avoid stockouts, stockouts are when you're missing that critical spare part when you need it most, which will typically extend downtime. Just-in-time availability, which again is tricky in a pandemic, but not having too much or too little of parts. I'm going to spotlight energy for a couple of slides here, our Energy Manager solution. Energy is typically the second or the third largest budget line item for a manufacturer. We spend a lot of money on energy in the manufacturing world. And as an organization, you really need to be analyzing that utility bill, find those spikes in consumption, which really do lead to profit killers, but are also likely indicators of production line issues, especially where your sub-meters are down to, or overall consumption issues within your organization. But having a tool that can help you analyze where are you spending, where's your budget going, how does it compare this year to last year, this week to last week, this month over month? What is the ROI of projects like maybe you're doing an LED light retrofit and start to analyze, or you're doing efficiency conservation measure on your assets and so forth. You can analyze and measure, are you making those improvements? It really helps you identify those problems and improvements that you're working around your energy, and it has a solid ROI. It's also good for the planet. As an example, Amazon is set to, they've announced they're doing a net zero carbon emissions by the year 2040. Many organizations, manufacturers, and the like have set goals that are energy focused, and you really need to use tools like this to make that come true. It's not only going to be good for the planet, though. This is really good for your bottom line. So lean and efficiencies pay off. Some of the data on this screen right here this data is all from a client of ours, where if you start in the upper left-hand corner here, the reduction of average corrective maintenance work order hours in the first year, when we were able to start measuring how long it took for every corrective maintenance work order, this client was spending 3.13 hours per corrective maintenance work order. By year 3, they had gotten that number to under an hour. That has all kinds of positive ramifications throughout the organization, including controlling costs, promoting more uptime. Talk about lean and efficiency, the way your team is operating. Upper right-hand corner, as this client is able to shift the ratio of preventive and corrective maintenance, for every 1% they can increase their preventive maintenance and decrease their corrective maintenance, they will save annually $26,000 in change. And this is a big client with multiple plants around the country. But the math's easy on this. Their average corrective maintenance work order is $400. Their average preventive maintenance work order is $52. As they shift those, not only are they becoming more, have a more controllable, predictable environment, better morale, all the things that a proactive preventive environment gives, saves them a whole bunch of money. And in the bottom one, the bottom stat right there, you can see over time, from when they were first implementing the CMMS to by the end of year 3, they shaved $2 million off their overall maintenance spend. Again, large organization, lots of plants around the country. Apply this to your appropriate size. But the bottom line is being lean, being efficient, especially with a well-implemented CMMS, really does pay off. So we're going to go through a little sort of a parody on, like I said, a Discovery Channel or History Channel, whatever you want to do. I love those kind of documentaries where they use a timeline and they describe a situation. I'm going to do the same thing. So we're starting on a Monday. And you can see here we've got a little timeline that completes all the way on the far right where that gold star is. So it's a Monday. We're at day 0 here, and we got an all too important, much needed sales win. It's a pandemic right now, and some organizations are really struggling, and we were able to bring this deal in. The challenge with this is we're on a somewhat tight deadline, maybe a really tight deadline. But hey, we're excited. We got the win. We just have to fill this order for this client by the time that gold star was at the end of the timeline. But we are on the clock. Tick, tick, tick. So fast forward. And it's kind of intentional that we're going far down this timeline to the days leading up to when we've promised to deliver this order for that customer where that gold star is. We're at Wednesday plus 16 in days. We're at 75%. We're humming along. We're getting that order filled. And boom, we have a major problem with a primary production line that screeches us to a halt. We have serious downtime. And it's further complicated by a stockout. Again, a stockout, the part we need or the parts we need to get this situation remedied, we do not have in stock. It's a pandemic, folks. Sometimes getting these critical spare parts takes even longer than they would in normal times. This is a terrible situation and obviously creates serious jeopardy for us to keep our team happy as well as our client. And in fact, Friday comes along, the day we're supposed to deliver this order to the client, and we can't do it. We have an organizational fail. We have a missed deadline. We have unhappy customers. We have a demoralized team. Now, this example is maybe familiar to some of you. Maybe I'm being a little too dramatic in how I'm doing it. But the bottom line is we can avert this. And what I want to do is I'm going to rewind this whole story. And we're going to talk about how using lean and efficient processes complemented by a CMMS, computerized maintenance management system, can help avoid that situation. So we're going to rewind on the timeline. We're going back to the original Monday. And we still have that much needed sales win. But again, we still have the tight deadline. And you know, these things happen. We have tight deadlines. We have to be ready for each and everything. We just want to be excited that we got the order in, and we want to make that client happy. But again, we're on the clock. Tick, tick, tick. My screen keeps bouncing back there. I apologize. I'm not sure why. I'll use this button here instead. So we're on Tuesday, 1 day later. And this is where it starts. And I want to be really clear about something. All these little milestones we're about to do, this is normal day-to-day operations. If you're operating lean and efficient and it's complemented by a CMMS, everything we're going to talk about is just a normal way of going about your day. But it all starts with coordination. Sales, production, maintenance are all in lockstep. Your preventive maintenance, your corrective maintenance work order scheduling, your parts that you're going to need to order, analytics to review the status and health of your team and your assets. It all comes back to communication. Communication is so key. You're collaborating with all these different departments, all with the goal of having a successful completion of not only that order, but all the orders that you have to fill for your clients. So coordination, Tuesday, 1 day into it. Communication, the central hub for your maintenance operations is typically your CMMS. This is the dashboard of our asset essentials. This is where all the users, and that could be your maintenance technicians, foremen, supervisors, people in engineering, production, your chief operating officer, anybody who has visibility into what is going on around your maintenance or repair operations can use this tool to centralize and look and see what your communications are. When you look at that dashboard screen, we've got key performance indicators. We've got charts showing us the progress we're making. We've got our work center. We've got our work center on the screen that shows how many work orders we have ongoing with our team and how many are overdue, how many parts we're going to need. So you have to have this tool to help keep all that central communication, have all that central repository of information of what is going on. We have the ability to see our preventive maintenance schedule into the future. This will be a key screen or report that we'll want to share with our production team and look and see, okay, we've got this order, maybe it was sprung on us, it's a tight deadline. We have to communicate and make sure, do we have as maintenance team, do we have the availability of the assets that we're going to need to do some PMs to ensure those assets are going to run efficiently? Or maybe there's some other less critical PMs that we might need to shift around. But have that visibility to the work that's going to be ongoing to get us ready for that order and keep us going with all the other work that we're going to be doing in our facility. Our corrective maintenance work orders as well. We have current ones that are open and ongoing. We have maybe future scheduled corrective maintenance work orders that are sort of on the back burner. But to take a look and have visibility to all of that ongoing work that's going on in your facility. I've highlighted one of the columns there. It's in a red box, calculated criticality. Calculated criticality is a measurement that helps us identify and really properly prioritize the work, preventive and corrective, that is going on in our facility. So often people use the quote-unquote priority field, that's 2 columns to the left of that red box, to indicate what order things should get done. And obviously priority is a key field. But it's really important that you take priority and combine it with the asset criticality so that you can calculate what we call calculated criticality. Some people call it a RIME index, R-I-M-E. The lower the number, the more critical that work order is. And if you look and you train your eye down that priority column, you can see that we've got medium priority work orders that are outranking high priority work orders. The reason for that is those assets are more essential than the other assets. Bottom line here is you're throwing at production an order that is on a tight deadline. You need to look and see visibility into the work that's going on in your facility and make sure that we are as well organized and we are addressing the things that are going to present problems and cause us to miss that deadline. So calculated criticality and coordinating with appropriate teams around this can be very beneficial. We can also look at our team, the labor, and how people are allocated. When you look at the top of this screen here, we've got our team members. You can see the different greens, yellow, oranges, and reds, and it's an indicator. It's an indicator there that what people are under or overutilized. If it's in red, they've got too much on their plate. If it's in orange, they're probably just about okay. If they're green, they can probably accept more work. Again, efficiency and lean is making sure you have the right person for the right job at the right time. And having that visibility, including the ability to tweak the schedule. The bottom half of that screen is a bunch of work orders. And we can shift people around. We can shorten or lengthen the amount of time they're going to be on that work order. We can add or remove them. It's about just making sure we've got that right balance of team efficiently managed. Again, we want to do more with less, but effectively, intelligently, efficiently. Going forward another day, Thursday. So now we're kind of getting ready. Coordination, we've talked about these things. Now we got to kind of get prepped. And again, these things that we're talking about would be ongoing and part of our regular day-to-day operations, not necessarily just because of this critical order that just came in. But that highlighted area on that left upper part of the screen there are the parts we're low on. You really want to look at the parts you're low on and make sure you take into account the disruptions to the supply chains that we're dealing with in this pandemic right now, and get those parts ordered. You do not want to be caught with a stock out. And having an identification of those parts you're low on, get email reminders of those parts, get a notification in your mobile device, and just know that those parts have visibility, bottom center of the screen, have visibility of all the parts in the system, how many are available, how many are reserved, how many are on back order. Upper right-hand corner, what parts are we going to need for those upcoming preventive maintenance routines or corrective maintenance routines that we're going to have to perform, part kits and PM-associated parts and whatnot. Again, we want to make sure we've got just good organization and management of those parts. Moving forward, we're about a week into our timeline now. We're on Monday of the following from the order. And now we're continuing to get ready. We're getting closer to this production run. We want to start looking at our analytics. We want to have visibility into things like mean time to repair and mean time to failure. We want to know how our assets' health is. We want to know about our team and our effectiveness, and look for bad actors, look for problem areas that we should focus on. Again, this is good medicine for any day-to-day operations, but a forward-thinking maintenance supervisor will look at these analytics and try to see, is there anything that might give us an issue as we're getting close to this run? Look at our people again. And we talked about this screen, but now we're getting a lot closer to the production run. Now, you might want to be forward-thinking and make sure that you might have a key technician that's associated with that production line. Is he or she on vacation? Is he or she tied up with another important critical job that will make their availability less? How under or overutilized is the team as we're getting closer to this production run? So again, visibility into your team and find out where you might need to move things around and be ready for possible problems. We're getting closer, Wednesday. Preventive maintenance routines that you're going to do in advance of this production run. And again, you should be doing preventive maintenance all the time. Again, lock sync with your production partners and make sure that you've got the availability to the assets, which we looked at those different schedules. But having a really well-documented series of step-by-step instructions, you can see that in the upper left-hand corner, including videos, pictures, links to safety data sheets, standard operating procedures, the vendor's website, whatever you need, but give your technicians everything they need to get those jobs done carefully, safely, and on time when they're doing these PMs. And it's not just with a browser. Mobile devices really help maintenance teams shine in this situation. A maintenance person can walk up to an asset, scan the barcode, and instantly pull up the preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance work orders for that asset. You can see those step-by-step instructions that you would see in your normal browser or on a printed piece of paper. You can check it off when you get these done. If you do find problems, you can take pictures, you can take videos. So having your CMMS in the palm of your hand while you're out in the maintenance, while you're out in that shop floor can really help expedite, make you more efficient, make you more lean versus having to run back to your desk or root through paper to work on that particular work order, preventive or corrective. Now we're getting much closer. It's Monday. So we're actually in production run now. We're 25% done with this particular order. And we've identified a small incident. And more specifically, the pillar autonomous maintenance, which falls under the pillars of TPM. And autonomous maintenance TPM calls for, one of the many things it does, it calls for operators of these assets to perform basic maintenance tasks, general inspections, and so forth. In this particular case, the operator, he or she's starting their shift, they scan the asset, they get a list of what they need to do when they start their shift. You can see those step-by-step instructions in the upper right-hand corner. TPM, autonomous maintenance, often calls for very, very basic operations and tasks, such as cleaning, tightening, lubricating, again, whatever is appropriate and trained for your operator. And what I believe is the most important is an inspection, and that might include taking meter readings. You can see in that bottom right-hand corner, whether it's cycle count or hours or temperature or whatever the metrics are that would be entered in your CMMS. Now, in this particular example, there was a number that gave us an anomaly. And the great thing about a well-implemented CMMS is that anomaly can trigger a workflow and identify an appropriate technician. So here we have the technician who got a notification in his mobile device, probably got an email as well. We knew who the appropriate technician was because of the association between assets and teams or contractors or technicians, so we routed it to the right person. Because we have the mobile device, that person was able to say, uh-oh, small issue. They get over to that asset, they've got good instructions, and they can try to identify and remedy that situation. In this particular example, we were able to avoid any amount of significant downtime, and we caught the problem early and went in the overall production. And that's the whole idea about being lean and efficient, is catching those problems early before they snowball into those really, really terrible downtime situations. So here we are Wednesday. This happens to be the point in the timeline that my disaster version started with. We're at 75% complete. We're humming along. The big difference here is we're going to keep humming along. We do not have that repeat of that downtime with the stock out that we talked about before. We get to the end of our timeline. We're on Friday. We see the gold star, and what do we have? We have a victory. We did it. We collaborated with our production, maintenance, potentially engineering, sales. We use lean and efficient processes and tools as part of our overall regular day-to-day operations, and we're able to have this victory. We were able to make our client happy. We were able to keep production happy and maintenance happy. And this is the way it should go. And this is when you operate lean and efficient and are supported by good tools like a well-implemented CMMS, you can achieve this. So let's do a final recap before we move over into Q&A. So lean at the bottom of that screen there. The top half with the one check mark and the explosion on the end, that's the organizations that just kind of have their head in the sand and they are just run to fail, or they're just firefighting all the time. They're not thinking proactively. They're not using those communication tools. They're not doing that preventive maintenance. The bottom were all the check marks, and again, I don't want to overwhelm people thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have time to go all 3 steps. This is when you're lean and efficient and you're supported by a CMMS, these are just the things you do. And you will be amazed when you get to that mode, when you get to that proactive mode, how much more time you have in your day. So those check marks or those different points, don't think of them as additional chores. Think of them as a way of life. And that will deliver a much more positive outcome at the end of that timeline. And it pays off. It improves morale. We talked about the first example with that organizational fail. And when you have fails like that, that reverberates through the entire organization, and it's a morale killer. We want to do the opposite. We want to have those victories with good teamwork. It helps control costs and drives profitability. The numbers that we talked about earlier in this presentation prove it. It moves you away from that dreaded firefighting mode. It moves you into that more calm, cool, and proactive mode. As you start to shift your ratio of preventive to corrective to preventive, when you're 25% preventive and 75% corrective, and then you start to move to a 50-50, that's where you really start to see improvements.
Here is our closing poll, and we'd like to know what it is.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm back. My landline dropped there. I apologize. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Paul, we can hear you, and we're on slide 50, the closing poll, and I'm just asking the audience to please let us know what it is they'd like us to learn on in terms of this question. So if it needs to be launched, let's go ahead and launch that.
Thank you for doing that, Kevin. And what I'll do is I can just do my parting comments while people are answering that poll, and then we can move on to Q&A. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great.
Okay. I apologize again to the people on the webinar. So anyway, this is all a You're not going to achieve it all at once. You need to take baby steps. When you look at your overall list of what do we need to do to improve our maintenance and operations, that's the assessment phase. You make a long list. You're not going to get to it all. You got to prioritize that list. And we help you. Dude Solutions with our consulting services will help you prioritize that and embed your priority into a plan that is implemented in the software. So if you want to focus on improving your PM to corrective maintenance ratio, or you've had bad stockouts and you want to work on improving your parts and procurement aspect, bottom line is you start to build that into how you're going to use the CMMS software. You execute it, and then as you start to use the software, you'll continue to make these incremental improvements, and it circles right back to the beginning over time. So it's baby steps, but you'll find that you will take baby steps which will lead into walking, which will lead into running. It takes a solid CMMS to do this and services to get it implemented. Services are things like consulting services and training and help desk. And I don't want people to think this means, consultants camped out in your offices for weeks and months at a time. This is right-sized services to really make sure that you're going to get your implementation off the ground efficiently and effectively. You want to involve your team. You want to make sure your whole team, your appropriate members of your team are even involved in the search for CMMS and listen to what their goals, their objectives, their pain points are. Get their buy-in. They'll turn into champions as you implement. It's a continuous improvement process. That progress will become contagious. All right, I know we got ourselves a little spun around here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Kevin. It sounds like we already got our last poll put out there, and we'll have some time for some Q&A, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, so much. And for our audience, Paul's here to answer your questions. Please send them to us. We will get to as many questions as time allows, and questions that we don't get to today will be posted online with the archived version of the webcast. And remember to please download a certificate of completion, a copy of the presentation, and other resources using the Event Resources tab on the left-hand side of your screen. Well, thanks so much, Paul. We really are here on the same level of watching the cable news networks, because with the virus, they're really doing the same kind of Zoom calls that we are, and they often have problems with the audio. So we apologize to our audience for that, but we realize that we're not alone. Let's just get to some questions, Paul. From your point of view, is a CMMS and an EAM the same thing?
That's what came first, the chicken or the egg? It depends who you ask. I think in today's day and age, you can think of them as very similar. There was a point in time where CMMS would have been, say, a much more elementary, just work order focused, and an EAM had much more of the financials and other aspects. At the end of the day, the cloud-based CMMS like Asset Essentials will all have a variety of core functionality, like, again, preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance management, parts and procurement, of course, asset management, crossing over into the financials, the ability to harness IoT, and so forth. So it depends who you ask. I will often use those phrases synonymously because we've not, it's difficult to really differentiate, in my opinion, these days.
Good. I liked your Discovery Channel metaphor, and it seemed to me like that the real Achilles heel in the former example was that they weren't really planning ahead the way they should have. Is that about the biggest mistake that people make when they're using an enterprise asset management system? Or from your point of view, what is the number one thing that you seem to tend to find when you go into plants and start looking at their implementation of maintenance systems?
If I'm getting involved, then they've already taken the first and most important step. When I say me, Dude Solutions or any quality CMMS, when we're part of the conversation, then they've already taken the critical first step to recognize that there is a better way, that they can be lean and efficient, that they can move away from that firefighting mode. What always strikes me is organizations that just kind of think of it as normal to have too much downtime or to have stockouts, which just really anger production and finance and sales. And it's just the way it is. Oh, here we go. It's down again. And to do that, you really, you have your head in the sand to some extent. You're ignoring that you could do better. In some cases, these would be organizations that might even have a CMMS system in place. It's just a very poorly implemented one. It is not complementing their operations. It's maybe just a place to push paper around because somebody demanded that they have a work orders management. But yeah, I think that as soon as an organization can recognize we can do better, we can be more lean, we can be more efficient, how can I get there? And it is a combination of software solutions and internal processes that will have to be improved, and you can use things like 5S and Six Sigma and TPM and other Kaizen and other disciplines, methodologies, and programs to help improve. But CMMS can be an integral part for all of that.
Well, thanks, Paul. Let's talk for a minute about the impact of the virus. Now, Now, we have talked about this before, and it seemed like right from the beginning of the year when it all started happening, the locus for development efforts, particular to mitigating or dealing with the virus, were being developed inside of EAM systems. Is that still the case? Does it seem to you? What kinds of functionality is being considered or being implemented in EAM to deal with the virus? And I have a follow-up question, but let's stop right there. Go ahead.
No, it's an excellent question. And I think, when the virus was when we were first getting into shutdown mode, I think everybody was just kind of like, okay, how long is this going to last? Let's just get through it and kind of do the best we can. To use the schools analogy, like the way our kids back in March and April were just struggling to have any semblance of school virtually, and how it's improved. Is it perfect? No. Do we have a long way to go, and would we rather be in person? Of course. I think it's been similar in manufacturing, especially as it relates to technology to support CMMS, EAM, or really any application, is there's been a paradigm shift where not only are we finding it normal to say work from anywhere, even in the manufacturing world, have people effectively spend part of their day, whether they're working from their home or they're in their office because they can't be around other people in their plant, and to rely on tools. Cloud-based software, absolute minimum. I think everybody would agree with that. Mobility, a lifesaver in the way it is now, because you can have everything at your fingertips. But there are definitely aspects, I think, that we look at in terms of improving our application, a focus on the safety aspect of CMMS. Our solution has, you can easily document, control, monitor, and review your PP&E policies and so forth, and associate these, whether it's a PP&E policy, something very generic to a department or to your overall organization, or very specific policies, like do you have to have extra precautions when you go to perform a preventive or corrective maintenance task? Do you document those? And we tie that into the safety aspect of our solution. So yeah, I think that in the short and midterm we are seeing changes, and in the long term, I think it's just going to continue to punctuate things like IoT and have that more electronic notification, a little less hands off, and so you don't have to have people physically at the assets as much. So, I think like all parts of our life, manufacturing and CMMS related will have a long-term impact in how we use these solutions.
Good. Thank you. Paul, it's odd when we out and doing our shopping as consumers where these supply chain gaps seem to arise, where a certain kind of product just doesn't seem to be available. Have you noticed any pattern to that, or have the users of Dude Solution Systems, are they in any way indicating where they are seeing supply chain shortages?
I don't have specifics. I can tell you this. When I do talk to our clients, focus on your spare parts and your procurement process is definitely under more of a microscope, more of a spotlight. Doing things like taking physical counts, ABC, Monte Carlo, however you want to do it, managing your spare parts room and having excellent visibility so you don't get caught in the stock out. Looking at those lead times, and this is data that you can track. How long is it going to take you to get that part? Those numbers are changing. In some cases, maybe not much. In some cases, dramatically. In some cases, you might have to source a different vendor to get things, which you hadn't ever had to do in the past. So I can't speak to specific aspects of where the supply chain has become interrupted, but I can say that there's definitely been more focus on that part of our solution.
Thanks. Great answer. Yeah, the other thing that we're kind of looking for here at the magazine are indications of kind of reverse globalization. And Schneider Electric had a press conference the other day in which they talked about how they're being drawn into engagements where people are looking to bring back productive capacity from overseas back into the U.S. And you can't do that if your present location is a 65-year-old plant. So that's something that we're going to be interested in looking at going forward. But that's wandering a little bit from the topic. How, in the time you've been involved in it, Paul, since you first programmed your first CMMS system, how has the footprint of the software application grown?
You know, what's interesting is the core functionality is largely unchanged, probably going back to the original mainframe versions from the 70s. And there was the DNA of CMMS goes back. I think even there were some military versions, very, very rudimentary in the 60s. You know, the very, very early generation of those massive mainframe that would serve up some version of that. So, you know, the core things like work orders management and tracking of your assets and tracking of your parts has largely been unchanged. In terms of, but what has changed is how the software has evolved to adapt to modern times. So, you know, take for example cloud-based solutions and managing multiple plants around your area, your state, your country, or the world, and have that easy ability to see that. Or you can also look at like spare parts. Spare parts have been part of CMMS forever. But now the concept of a just-in-time, because organizations recognize that we don't want to have too many parts on hand. The accounting, the finance people hate that. We definitely don't want to have too few. That leads to stockouts and extends downtime. So features and functions within your CMMS solution to aid in how can we have a just-in-time, a right balanced quantity in hand of our parts. IoT would be another example, that quick notification when an asset's in trouble. So I think what we're seeing is the peripheral technology advances, mobile devices and other areas are complementing this core functionality that's been around forever. You will find new and innovative analytics, and we have a great analytics platform, or things like safety as part of maintenance operations, tying in with the operators, which is really just operators. If you follow the TPM, autonomous maintenance discipline, they're just maintenance people for just a small part of their day when they start their shift. They just have elementary tasks. So areas like that, but. I'm giving you a long-winded answer, but the core hasn't changed, but it's just made so much more efficient and come into the way we do things in today's world.
Well, thanks for that answer. I mean, I think we have a very sizable audience for the maintenance function with Plant Engineering Magazine, but, you know, trying to identify the key issues or the issues that are coming to the surface at any particular moment may not be easy, but I think one of the most interesting ones are the data management issues that are involved, just because if the EAM system or the CMMS system is the repository for all of your information about equipment and machines, then it starts to become the locus for digital twins and all kinds of things like that. What kind of issues is that data availability bringing to the fore in the maintenance function, if you will?
Oh my gosh, it's just some of the most exciting advances that I've seen in a long time in my career, just because of the sheer quantity of data that's available. And keep in mind, it's of course we've always looked at reports. What is our top 10 failure codes? Or what are our, top 10 most expensive assets to maintain? Those types of metrics and analytics we've had for a while. We now, though, can do so much more, but just the number of data points that we can work with. And it's not only just, in our one plant, but if you're an organization that has multiple plants, or you're even one organization that has lots of similar assets that might be operating in different ways, to compare them side by side, and where are those really bad actors, to look at the different trends, to do predictive maintenance analysis, so you can really microanalyze. The bar has gone up so much in terms of like those, what was considered the core reports. We can take those another level, but it goes even beyond that. We can now start to look at peer group analysis. How does my plant compare to my brother and sister plants? Or how does this model of this asset compare to another universe of assets? Just the tools that we have to analyze the data, the way we can store this data, the way we can retrieve this data directly, in many cases, from the assets, and tie everything together in this enterprise cloud. It's just an absolutely exciting time. I think we're seeing this in all aspects of our lives, the same way that Netflix has sort of an uncanny ability to tell us the next video we want to watch, those algorithms and so forth. We're really starting to see how that plays into and making our maintenance operations that more efficient, that more effective.
Thanks, Paul. Now, we've been talking on a fairly theoretical level, if you will, about the role of data in and about EAM systems. But one thing that is very reality-based is the impact that cloud is having on enterprise asset management software markets, as well as for ERP and other categories of software as well. But talk a little bit, and this is going to be the last question for our webinar today. We're starting to run out of time. Talk a little bit about how the impact that cloud is having on the market, and also the impact of cloud on implementations and operation of CMMS systems.
Well, you can just imagine if we did not have cloud-based solutions really in all aspects of our life, whether it's ordering, making a reservation or ordering food, or our kids going to school, or even how we're presenting to everybody today. Cloud, and I've been a huge proponent of this for a long time. Cloud software in the CMMS EAM world, it's even before this pandemic, it just reduced the barriers of entry for organizations that might have 2 or 3 plants that just couldn't afford, an expensive wide area network, as we used to say back in the day, just to tie things together, whether you're across town or you're across the world, and do it. But it really is also impacting how, like even our mobile devices, which heavily rely on the cloud. It's wherever I am, my CMMS is in front of me, whether it's being delivered to me with a keyboard and a monitor, or a mobile device, or if it doesn't matter. It's all right there. It also allows us to more easily tie in with our suppliers and our vendors, the email and other forms of notification to our contractors and our own team through the cloud, and even things like IoT to get data from our assets. Is just the barriers of entry have been greatly reduced. It's just an amazing tool. And again, this is across all walks of life, but manufacturers who really, there really is no other way, in my opinion, now to operate. The concept of having an on-premise solution, if you were still thinking that was a good idea before the pandemic, how do you feel about it now? It would be almost impossible to run a chunk of our operations, especially given the work from anywhere. So it was, in my opinion, cloud and mobility have been the biggest changes, like everyday benefit, every user changes. You could argue, IoT and other technologies, stuff like that, are more awesome and radical, but I'm talking about everybody, the maintenance person, the person making a request, the foreman, the supervisor, all the way to the plant manager, having that information at their fingertips. It's changed everything, and I think for the absolute 100% better.
Great. I mean, interesting. The other day I saw a release on mini data centers for industrial environments. So I thought that was quite interesting. But thanks, Paul. I think we've ranged a little bit wider than usual in our discussion today. We want to thank our listeners for their questions as well. And Paul, we want to thank you for sharing your time and expertise.
Always a pleasure. Fun conversations, Kevin. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Paul. We'll see you next time. I'd also like to extend special thanks to our sponsor, Dude Solutions, for sponsoring today's event. And now that we're just about done, we'd like to hear how we did. The exit survey will pop up on your screen as soon as the webcast ends. Please take a moment to complete it because we use this information to improve our webcasts. Finally, on behalf of Plant Engineering and Dude Solutions, I'd like to thank you for attending. This concludes our webcast, and we'll see you next time.